2024 has come to a close, and this is every single book I read, all 102 of them. Grab a snack, maybe a little hot drink of choice, preferably caffeinated. Let's get into these books. I'm gonna go way back to the very, very beginning. This is the good, the bad, the ugly. I'm not holding back. I did read the first 4 books in the Wolf Hotel series. I read these all on Audible because on Audible Premium they were included, and I loved the first 2. The third was good. The last one that I read, I didn't care for. I know there is a 5th one, which I'll probably read eventually, but I am not in a rush for it because by the end I was kind of over it. I feel like it loses the excitement, which like if you read the first 2, you'll understand the excitement and like what makes it fun. Also finished the Caraval series. I really enjoyed this series, and the 3rd book was actually my favorite, which I know is not a very popular opinion. I just felt like it was so different than the first 2 books in such a good way that I just really, really enjoyed it. I do think it's a series that if you're interested in reading it, I think it's worth the read, but I really don't think it would be for everybody. Like the writing is very different. It's very poetic and kind of hard to understand. It feels very Alice in Wonderland coded, but overall I do recommend it. I read The Wedding Party by L.R. Jones, and this was an ARC at the time, and I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. It was a bit boring. It was very like beginner thriller. Everything is just really laid out for you beautifully. Like if you're brand new to thrillers, it's probably perfect, but because I'm somebody who reads a lot of thrillers, it just wasn't really hitting the spot for me. But a thriller that did hit the spot was The Girls in the Cabin by Caleb Stevens. This was my first 5-star book of 2024. Dare I say it's a 6-star because I literally have not stopped talking about this book since January of 2024. A man and his daughters go on a hike in the woods and the mountains after his wife passes away, and he feels very distant from his daughters, so he decides to take this like a little trip with them to kind of bond with them again. When one of his daughters goes missing, they end up finding her and she's injured. With a snowstorm brewing and no way to get out of these woods right now, they end up seeking shelter in this cabin that they find, which does have inhabitants. And unfortunately for them, the horrors in this place are worse than what is happening outside. I loved this book so much. The twist got me. I, to this day, think about this book all the time. The Fury by Alex Michaelides. Liked this. It was my second Alex Michaelides book. I did read The Silent Patient before, and I really liked that one. This one I really like too. I love the way that he describes his scenes. The way that he creates a setting, it is so easy to picture and it feels like a movie and it feels so eerie. I just love how it played out. I could really picture it in my brain like a movie. If you haven't read anything by this author yet, I do recommend. And I did start Throne of Glass, and I can't believe it's literally almost been a year since I started the series because I told myself I was going to put it down for like a month and I haven't picked it up since I put it down, but I did read The Assassin's Blade and Throne of Glass. I did read Assassin's Blade first. I know it's like a whole touchy thing. We're not going to get into that in this. I do have like a full Throne of Glass reading video planned, so we're not going to do that here. But I do personally think it needs to be read first. We'll talk about this another day. I did read Assassin's Blade. It was okay. Throne of Glass, really good. I don't think I would have gotten through Throne of Glass if I hadn't read Assassin's Blade first, but both of them I did really enjoy. The Way I Am Now by Amber Smith, this is the sequel to The Way I Used to Be, which was a 5-star read for me back in like the beginning of my reading journey, and unfortunately this one fell super flat. I did get it as an ARC. I didn't like it. I felt like I was baited into thinking this was like a conclusion and that we were actually going to get like a finished situation just to find out at the end of the book that there's going to be another book. And I'm just not like invested enough by the end because this book really felt unnecessary because I thought we were getting a conclusion and then we didn't get a conclusion. I think we should have just got a full conclusive book. Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. I really did fall in love with Jennifer Hartman's writing reading this book. It was dark in all the good ways. Like it kept me interested in the story the entire time. And I actually liked how it was split up because I thought the entire book was going to be the dark situation, but we actually get like a part 1 and a part 2 almost, where part 1 is kind of like the dark side of what's happening and the dark side of the plot. And then the second half of the book is more so like the aftermath of the dark things that happen in the book. Obviously check your trigger warnings on this one because it is quite dark, but it is absolutely beautiful. Be Still My Heart by Emily McIntyre and Savar Miller. I actually really don't like this. I should have DNF'd this book, if I'm being honest with myself, because by the end I was listening to this on like 3.5 speed just to get it over with. I was skipping any kind of spicy scenes. Like I just was not interested in this plot at all, and I should have DNF'd. That was my bad. It is very rare that a book gets a rating that low from me because I usually DNF if I'm hating something so much. I think I've just learned that Emily McIntyre just doesn't have the type of writing that I'm interested in reading. I just need to accept that. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I really enjoyed this, but I really don't have like any interest in finishing the series. I own all 3 books, but I'm probably gonna sell them or donate them because I don't know, it was good, but like, I don't know, I just don't know if I'm into like teenagers trying to solve murder mysteries. Like, it's just not something that appeals to me for some reason, which sucks because this book has so much hype, but that's just really not what I'm into. The Teacher by Frida McFadden. A lot of people didn't like this book. I really did like it. I know a lot of people are like, it's romanticizing this, and this. I'm like, it's a thriller book, guys. A lot of people were like, it's romanticizing predatory behaviors and things like that. First of all, this is a thriller. We're not romanticizing anything. Like, the entire time, you know that this is not a good thing and that it's inappropriate. So I don't really see the romance. Like, people need to remember that this wasn't a romance book. This was a thriller book. Okay, I'm glad we settled that. I thought this was really well done. I really enjoyed it. Not like anything crazy and jaw-dropping happens in it, but overall, it was really fun. And the epilogue was a nice little touch at the end. A Duet of Darkness and Dreams by L.H. Blake. This was a sequel to A Song of Sin and Salvation, which I read as an arc, and I read this one as an arc as well. I did really enjoy this book. I liked the first one better, but I still really enjoyed this. I liked that it was very different. I just wasn't as invested in the couples. The first one just had a trope in it that I truly like in a book. This one didn't really have that, so I think that's why I liked the first one better, but I still think it was worth the read to read the second one. I will be reading the next one. I did a reread of Daisy Jones and the Six. I did this one on Audible again, and honestly, at the time, I just had like nothing to read. I wasn't really into anything. I just wanted to kind of like read something I knew I liked. And it hit again. I really loved it. And I actually think it hit more the second time reading it because I already knew I loved the characters and was already invested. So I was invested from the start. Whereas when I read it the first time, I found that I wasn't invested right away and it took me a little while to get invested. The Perfect Patient by Luana Lewis. I honestly don't remember this book. So it's really hard for me to tell you if I recommend it or not. I don't think I didn't like it, but I don't think it was anything crazy because I don't remember it at all. Love to Hate You by Camilla Isley. This is just like a fun small town romance. Nothing crazy and very like standard small town trope where like she comes along from a big city and town mayor is keeping her from doing whatever it is she's there to do. Still really fun. Nothing special. Bride by Ellie Hazelwood shocked me. So different than what I'm used to reading from her. This was like her debut paranormal romance, and I think I learned this year that I really like paranormal romance, and this was so good for me. The spice was fun, it was different, it was interesting. It followed a plot that I feel like was very original for what she was writing, and for her first like dip into it, so fun. Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This one was like all over the internet, and I understand why. It was super fun. I did read it on Audible and I liked it. I loved that it was like a graphic audio, so you got like sound effects and stuff, which made it really, really fun. I did also read Leather and Lark on Audible. Really liked it too. I almost liked it more than the first one, if I'm honest, and I know not a lot of people did. I just liked the couple a little bit better. I felt like there was more emotional depth and they had more character development throughout the book than the first one. The first one just felt like a fun, silly, goofy time. The second one felt like an emotional roller coaster, and you could actually like connect with the characters, which I really liked. Beta by Sammy Scott. This was a surprise for me. I really, really enjoyed this. It really is like a Black Mirror AI type of thriller, but the plot twist, I wasn't even expecting there to be a plot twist. Like, I thought the whole thing was that it was just AI going wrong, you know, like smart houses, things like that going awry. But there is a plot twist, and there's multiple. And I really, really liked this. This was one of my top thrillers of the year. Okay, now we're gonna get into The Boys of Tommen, because this series kind of changed my life a little bit. I read all of the books in the series. I also received an arc of Taming Seven, which was a surreal moment for me. I loved Johnny and Shannon's books, Binding 13 and Keeping 13. I think about them all the time. Saving Six, Redeeming Six, didn't love as much. I love the characters, but I really just don't like to relive the same story over and over and over again from someone else's point of view. That's just not really like something I enjoy doing in a book, and that's what this was. These two, phenomenal. These two, still good. I still had a good time because I loved the characters, and I'm glad we still got to see Johnny and Shannon, but I did get kind of bored and it took me a long time to get through them. Taming Seven, I feel like we don't even need to talk about because it's not even that it wasn't not good, but not what I wanted for Claire and Gibbsy. I feel like if you've read Boys and Tommen, you're with me. And if I seem like I'm being very vague, it's because I don't really want to give anything away when it comes to plots. And also, if I told you the entire plot of every single one of these, it would take forever. so we're not going to do that. Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. I liked this. It was fun. It was very quick. Like, I think it took me like a day to read this. I liked the concept of it. I did see the plot twists coming in this book from like the beginning, which sometimes I feel like can kind of take you out of thrillers a little bit, especially if you're like certain that that's what's going to happen, and it does. But it was like fun. And it was fast paced. Let Him In by William Friend. I don't remember a lot about this. This was a horror book. And I think with horror books, I just don't get as invested because with horror, because it's kind of paranormal and literally anything can happen because it's not based on reality. Anything could be a plot twist because it's not based on real scenarios or real things that could happen. Like, I find that that's why I like thrillers, because the twists have to make sense in order for them to be twists. Therefore, there's a chance you can guess it, and there's like that element of trying to figure out a puzzle. Whereas with a horror book, it could literally, you could think that there's gonna be this twist and you're like putting puzzle pieces together, and then all along it was a ghost in the attic. I don't know if I like horror like that. I think I like horror that's based around reality. 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This was great. The hype is real. I loved the magical elements of this, but it still felt like real life. And I really do love magical realism, and I think that's why Divine Rivals is like my favorite duology of all time, because it doesn't feel like a fantasy. It's more like a magical realism. And this is very much like that, where it's very small magical elements, and then obviously the actual plot is magical, but it's not that people in the book have magic. It doesn't feel unrealistic. It feels like you're reading a fairy tale made for adults. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Once again, amazing. I loved the meet cute in this. Like, I loved the element of adding Reddit threads into this, like having somebody meet that way, because it's so like this generation coded, like meeting through a Reddit thread. I just absolutely loved it. All of the elements were great. The main male character was so sweet, and just Abby Jimenez has a way with words. If you haven't read her yet, you're missing out. The Serpent and the Wings of Night. So I did read both the books in the Crowns of Nyaxia. I loved the first one, The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Absolutely loved it. Second book, I really didn't like. It felt like so off from the first one. And I felt like there was so much potential, especially with the cliffhanger from the first book. And I felt like I was very let down. And it was just a long book full of nothing happening. The Crimson Moth by Kristen Ciccarelli. This one caught me by surprise because I got this book in Fairy Loot's like YA book subscription box. I had such low expectations, and then I absolutely fell in love with it. I'm so mad because I low-key ruined the dust jacket because I dropped it on the floor and stepped on. I don't want to talk about it. I don't know how to explain how that happened, but it did. And I really expected this duology to be one of those things where the first one hits really hard and the second one falls flat, and it was so the opposite. The second one was phenomenal. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars, but looking back, like I feel like it should be more because I really loved it. Like, it was done so perfectly, and it's exactly how a duology should be done and how it should be set up. Absolutely phenomenal. Zero complaints on this. If you haven't read this duology yet, I highly recommend. Then I read a couple of Penelope Douglas books because they were free on Audible. I read Fall Boys and Corrupt, and I disliked both of these. Corrupt was definitely not what I thought it was going to be. I really felt like I was baited by the synopsis. Like, it was just nothing like what I thought it was going to be. Same with Fall Boys, especially in audio. Like, I was like, what is even happening? What is going on? Like, I still to this day don't really know what those books were about. I couldn't tell you. Red Rising by Pierce Brown was one of my biggest disappointments of 2024. And I feel like it's an unpopular opinion. A lot of people really love this book. I don't know if it was because I read it on audio, and maybe one day if I get into sci-fi a little more, I will give that another shot. But I truly disliked it. Like, I loved it for the first 20%. And then after that, I just couldn't wait for it to be over, which sucks because it was recommended to me by multiple people. And I just really didn't like it. I ended up giving it away to one of my book friends because it just wasn't for me, and she wanted to read it. So I said, sure, girl, I got you. Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth was a book I got in Book of the Month, and I loved it. I ended up reading it on Audible. No, I read it on NetGalley. I got an audio arc. Absolutely loved it. And I did get it in my Book of the Month as well that month, which I had already ordered before I got the arc. This book surprised me. Very, very good. Sometimes with thrillers on Audible, I do struggle because if I miss like even like 5 minutes of dialogue, I have no idea what's going on for the rest of the book. But this one kept me hooked the whole time, and I also read it very quickly. Like, I think I read it within a day of just like reading it straight through when I was running errands and stuff. The twist was great. Everything was set up very, very well, and it gave me a very eerie feeling the entire time. Oh my god. Okay, the Rose Hill series by Elsie Silver makes me want to go back and read Chestnut Springs. I only read the first book in Chestnut Springs, but these two books were both 5 stars for me. I love them so much. I cannot wait for Wild Eyes. I think this might be like one of my favorite romance series of all time. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if it's the setting, the small town, like the men in these books. I don't know. but my heart is so full reading them. I love the Rose Hill series. Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa was also one of my top like disappointments of the year. My boyfriend had picked this book out for me last year and he was really excited about it and I really hated it. I thought that the entire plot was like predatory to the point where I was shocked that it has so much popularity and has never been questioned. I think it didn't help that the narrator like narrated our main male character like super predatory sounding. Like just the way that he like used his voice to narrate this character just made it like worse. I don't know how to explain that. I think you just have to experience it. Minx by Sophie Lark is literally just a spicy, fun, good time. Like if you want to read a book where there's like literally a spicy scene while they're driving a car or also in a gym and you just want to like have a good time and you don't want to think about anything other than the fact that it's just a spicy, fun, good time, then you should read this. The Rising Order by Claire Esenthal. This was an indie author book that was sent to me and I loved it. I did actually read this on audio and I recommend doing so because the narrators were perfect. The only gripe I have with it is that the male narrator's voice is so deep that like you can't read it in the car because if your car is like at all loud, you will like not be able to hear him because his voice is like so deep and like baritone. But if you're listening with headphones, it's beautiful. I loved this book. I cannot wait for the sequel. It's very much giving like pre-dystopian vibes. I really loved like the overall look. Like the cover actually gives you a perfect look into like just the vibes of this and like the theme. So if you like the look of the cover, you're gonna like the book. I did read Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera, and for a debut, this was great. I think it got like a ton of hype where I felt like it was very standard thriller about a podcast, but that's coming from someone who's read quite a few thrillers that are similar to this. So I think that's why it just didn't like hit like for all the hype that it got. I don't think any book is ever overhyped, okay? I think it's hyped for the right people. I did like it. I just don't think it was like my favorite thriller of the year. When You Find Me by PJ Vernon, I don't remember it. I read it on audio. I don't remember it. Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry. This, I knew going into it was dark, so that helped with the situation. But what I will tell you is that if you have children and like anything to do with your own child would like make you very mentally unstable, don't read it. That's all I can say. I think it was very disturbing. That's it. I really liked it. Deer and the Dragon by Piper CJ. I love the cover of this book and I also love the sequel cover of this book. I really enjoyed the book. I think it was like a little crazy. Like there was a lot going on and I feel like the timing of things was a little wonky and I think it confused me at times, but I still had a very good time reading this. I think I tandem read the audio with the ebook. Really liked it. Say You Swear by Megan Brandy was a shocker for me. I didn't cry like a lot of people do, but I do think it's because the major climactic scene that usually makes people cry, I was literally on the Stairmaster dying on level 10 and could not focus on the fact that sad things were happening. I did gasp audibly, loudly. I did. But I didn't cry, but it's probably because I was sweating. Like I was already crying internally from the cardio. Loved this book. It really gave me like adult summer I turned pretty vibes. Keep You by Christopher M. Tantillo. This is another one of those is kind of a young adult teenagers trying to solve something situation. And as I've mentioned, it's not really my favorite. I do think this was very well done and I loved the imagery. I will read the second one, but it's definitely not my favorite book of all time because it's about teenagers solving things. And as I've mentioned a million times so far in this video, that's just not for me. Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey shocked me. It was a 5-star for me, I think. I don't remember, maybe a 4.5, but I really, really loved it. I felt like our main characters were really original in this. Like, I also just like have never read a golf sports romance, which was really fun, and my boyfriend golfs, so it was like, I just felt like I really related, you know? Tessa Bailey, in my opinion, can really do no wrong. I've loved like every single book I've read from her, and this one was no different. It was super fun. When the Moon Hatched by Sarah Parker. I do think this is probably my top read of the year, which is crazy because I literally don't think I could explain the book to you. I've literally watched so many TikTok explains this book because it is so insane and so long and so much happens that it is very hard to explain it. What I will tell you is that it is 100% worth the read. I literally read it in its entirety on my phone, on the Kindle app, on continuous scroll, and I read it very quickly for how long it is. And now I own multiple editions of this book. So if that doesn't tell you how much I loved it, because it seems like that's the trend. I fall in love with a book and then I buy every special edition possible for it. The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden. Unfortunately, I agree with the majority on this one that it was just not hitting like the first 2 books in the series were. I wanted to love it. I really did. I didn't not like it, but like you cannot make me fall in love with Enzo for the first 2 books and then do what you did in the 3rd book. The next 2 I was very indifferent about. Our Little Secret by Lisa Jackson and He'll Be Waiting by Liz Alterman. Just meh thrillers for me. Not a lot to remember, not a lot to talk about. I read them both on audio. Didn't tickle my fancy. I did read One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns, and I absolutely loved them. I loved Two Twisted Crowns just like a little bit more than One Dark Window. And I think it's because One Dark Window was very like, it was almost too poetic for me. Almost to the point where I could not understand what was happening or like what the whole point of the book was. But Two Twisted Crowns fixed that. It simplified it a little bit, but still kept that like melodic, beautiful writing. And if you haven't read this series yet, the magic system is extremely cool and very original, so I do recommend it. Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is a touchy one for me. I'm going to be rereading this one in the new year because I truly wanted to love this because I love Emily Henry, but I think I just couldn't like attach my brain to the audiobook for some reason. So I'm going to reread it in the new year, but I'm going to read it physically, and I think that will help. Borrow My Heart by Casey West. This is just like a fun little YA book. Nothing crazy, a little silly. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but if you want like a really fast read, I read this in like 4 hours. Do You Remember by Frida McFadden was a really fun one for me. I did guess the plot twist, but another book I read in like 4 hours, you really just can't go wrong. Every Summer After by Carly Fortune shocked me because the internet hated this book and I absolutely loved it. Loved the summer vibes. I loved like the Canadian representation, like just being able to actually like picture the places because I've been to these places was really, really fun. I definitely can't wait to read more from this author because her writing was very, very good. Bye Baby by Carola Lovering. I've had this as an ARC on my Kindle for like a year and a half and I finally read it as one of my friends read it and she loved it and I really did like it. I thought it was really fun. It did get a little bit repetitive towards the end, but I think it was worth the read. It was just a fun time. There's no like crazy plot twist or anything, but I don't think there's meant to be. And overall, it was a really fun time. Keep It in the Family by John Mars. I really like John Mars. This one fell a little flat for me. It was very intense and very strange, but you really can't go wrong with John Mars in general. It just wasn't like his other books where I feel like his other books give you like Black Mirror vibes and this doesn't. This is very thriller, just normal life thriller. Rebel Witch is the 2nd book to The Crimson Moth. Absolutely stunning. Best ending to a duology that I've seen in a very long time. Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This one got a lot of hate as well, but I really liked it. I thought it was really well done. I thought we got a lot more depth to our characters, and even though I know it's very much like they just go on a journey together and that is all that happens. Yes, but honestly, for that cliffhanger at the end, it was like worth it. Like worth every second. Never by Jessa Hastings was another book that got like a ton of hate when it first came out, but I honestly loved it. I was so angry at the end. And I think that's why I decided to like give it such a high rating because at first I was like, this ending has made me want to drop my rating because I'm so pissed off. But I feel like if a book can make you that emotionally invested to the point where you're like legit angry with it, I feel like it deserves a good rating. The Widow's Husband's Secret Lie. It's literally it's satire. That's all I need to say. Till Death Do Us Part by Elizabeth Flynn started extremely strong. Beautiful writing, just got really boring and really repetitive. Worst Case Scenario by TJ Newman once again started off extremely strong. By the end was kind of like meh, a little bored. I think that it was done really well in the audiobook. If you're going to read it, I think you should read it on audio. The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. I wasn't sure about this at first with the writing. It sounded almost juvenile, but it was an adult book. But by the end, I was pretty invested and I did in fact cry. Catch the Sun by Jennifer Hartman. This literally had me screaming in the car. Things in this book were so wild. You literally could never tell me what was going to happen in that book and I'd believe you, which I feel like was really fun and different. Like there was nothing I could expect from this book. It was literally just wild in every single way. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is like a biography. I don't really like rate people's personal stories. I don't think that I enjoy reading about people's lives that are real, but I think it was cool to see that side. Not cool. Sounds weird to say. I think it was interesting to see the side of that because iCarly was like one of my favorite shows growing up. Like me and my best friend literally made a YouTube channel where we were trying to basically be iCarly. We loved it. So seeing that side of it was very interesting. The Thieves Gambit by Kavion Lewis actually surprised me. I ended up reading this because I got an arc of the next book in the series, which I haven't read yet, but I will be because I did actually really enjoy this. It was like a YA, just like fun book about thieves. Like it's like Hunger Games, but for thieves. I don't know. Like, and nobody dies. I mean, does anyone die? I don't remember. I thought it was really fun. Like if you like games in your books where people are like, competing for things, you'd like this. This is where like fantasy really took over my life. I read A Sword of Shadow and Deceit and that put me into the Mortal Gods series. I read the first 3 books. The 4th one like literally just came out, so I haven't read it yet. but I literally became obsessed with this series. It became my entire personality. If you are looking for a fantasy series that does not get enough hype, this is the one. This entire series has blown me away and I cannot wait to read the fourth one. I loved it so much. Nothing like the movie by Lynn Painter. It was what it was. I don't think we needed a sequel, but I think if you loved the first book, like sure, read this. But as somebody who like was just indifferent about the first book, this was just kind of meh. And I also just like really felt like both of our main characters were extremely insufferable when they got older. Like I liked them better as teenagers. Phantasma by Kaylee Smith is one of my favorite books of the year. I read this in October. Absolutely stunning. I literally read this in like one sitting. Like I tandem read the audio with the physical book. Absolutely amazing way to read it. I highly recommend. If you're looking for something very unique and fun and still gives you that like games feeling with a little bit of fantasy, absolutely beautiful. Highly recommend. Truly Madly Deeply by LJ Shen was just okay. I didn't really like it, if I'm honest. I did get an arc for this. It just wasn't my favorite. I didn't like the main male character. And I think once you don't like the main male character, you just can't come back from that. Ask for Andrea wasn't what I was expecting it to be. I didn't expect it to be kind of paranormal. And that's not really a spoiler, like you get that immediately in the book, but I just didn't really realize that. The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden, I think I really, really liked this. I liked the setting in this book. Anything like a big city, I love. And I loved like that she was like in the dating scene. And I think Frida, like I said, she just can't really do wrong. Like some of her books are just like meh, but they're still fun. Like you still have a good time. You can't read a Frida book and not have a good time. The Life We Bury by Alan Eskins. This is a very dark book, very fun. I really, really liked the way that the main character unraveled things that were not right to him. I do think it's worth the read, but I think you'd want to read it on Audible. I did read the first 3 books of the Zodiac Academy series, and I'm going to tell you right now that this series literally feels like it was meant to be satire, but then eventually became like a serious series and everybody started to love it. So then the authors were like, okay, we better actually make this like make sense and have it be fun. Because the first book, you're like, what is literally happening? Like, is this like Harry Potter mixed with the Vampire Diaries, comedy, parody? Like, what is happening? But then you keep going and it just keeps getting better. I am on the 4th book and I've been on the 4th book for like 2 months. I don't want to talk about it. I've been in a bit of like a reading slump / my life has been way too busy, but I am getting through it. I'm about halfway done and I still love the series and I'm obsessed with the characters. The Perfect Son by Frida McFadden. Not a lot to say about it because I don't remember it. If You Lie by Caleb Stevens. If you like things that have to do with like cults, you would like this. Like cults scare me. They're probably something that I'm like the most scared of in my life is cults. This was really fun for me. Caleb Stevens can really do no wrong. Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. I didn't think this was going to be up my alley. Very similar like Butcher and Blackbird where it's like a dark romance comedy, but I did surprisingly really enjoy this and the audiobook was very fun. I think if you're going to read it on audio. I do understand the hype on this one. It was very, very fun. How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn. It really is just like a retelling kind of The Grinch, but in like a very fun romance way. And I loved every part of this book. It's literally just exactly what you sign up for, which is like a silly, fun, spicy Megan Quinn Christmas book. Then I read like a ton of novellas. Cruel Winter with You by Ali Hazelwood, really liked. Resting Scrooge Face by Megan Quinn was okay. Merry Ever After by Tessa Bailey was just like literally the weirdest, fun little Christmas novella. All by My Elf by Olivia Dade. Did not like this one. Same with Merriment and Mayhem by Alexandria Bellafleur. Didn't really like this one either. Only Santa's in the Building was pretty good. I liked this one. Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. Loved. This was a 5-star read for me. If you like Christmas in New York, you're gonna love this. Holiday Hideaway by Mary Kay Andrews. Didn't really know if I liked this. Like, I don't know if I like this author's writing. I need to read more by her to know, but it was weird because I liked the idea of it, but I don't know if I liked the execution. If You Give a Grump a Holiday Wish List by Anne Einerson was really good. Kind of weird. I don't know. I enjoyed it. Would I recommend? I don't know. Maybe around the Christmas time, it was just fun. Like I read it pretty quick. Kind of what you asked for in a Christmas novella. I did read Beartown by Frederick Bachman, and I fear I may have found a new favorite author. I'm absolutely obsessed with his writing. It is beautiful, and to find out this book is the first in a series made me so happy. So if you're gonna read a like winter themed book, highly recommend Beartown. I know it sounds kind of weird and kind of boring. Like it does not sound like something you would want to read, but it is so beautiful. And then I read Kiss and Don't Tell by Megan Quinn. I read this on audio and it started off really, really strong. I kind of got a little bored by the end, but I feel like with Megan Quinn's books, they're so long that like most of it will be great. And then it just like doesn't need that third act breakup. Like it just doesn't, but they all have them. And she just doesn't need them because they make the book too long. But I really enjoyed the idea of this. And I like that it's a series and I like that we'll get to see all the other hockey players in this one. It's funny because the audio, like it is a duet. So it's just like the way that they interact with each other is really, really fun. Overall, I like Megan Quinn. I think her books are actually funny. And this does make you laugh. That is it. That is all 102 books that I read. I did DNF quite a few books, but I think I'm going to put that in a different video because this one's already going to be really long. But overall, 2024 was actually a really good year. I'm surprised I broke 100 because I didn't think I was going to, but I cannot wait to build my 2025 TBR and my January TBR. It is going to be great. I have so many goals going into it, so stay tuned for that. And Happy New Year.